Hello and welcome to SWK 220 Introduction to Social Welfare Unit 1. I'm Ben Capilli, I am your instructor, and I hope that you have had time to get your textbook, Canadian Social Policy, A New Introduction, 5th edition from Graham, Shear, and Delaney, as we're reading Chapter 1 for this unit. And this video here is meant to be a brief introductory video to help you frame the readings or the reading. And also remember there's a brief chat discussion for this unit, and I will present the topic at the end of this video. But let's talk about social welfare. So what is social welfare? Social welfare is an abstract concept. It's not necessarily a product. I can't go to Polo Park. I can't go walk into a retail store and buy social welfare. It cannot be touched that way. Social workers, this is the CASW has a definition of social welfare, and this is what they define social welfare as verbatim. Social workers believe in the obligation of people, individually and collectively, to provide resources, services, and opportunities for the overall benefit of humanity and to afford them protection from harm. Social workers promote social fairness and the equitable distribution of resources and act to reduce barriers and expand choice for all persons, with special regard for those who are marginalized, disadvantaged, vulnerable, and/or have exceptional needs. Social workers oppose prejudice and discrimination against any person or group of persons on any grounds, and specifically challenge views and actions that stereotype particular persons or groups. That is a mouthful. If I was to try to condense that, social welfare is the promotion and provision for improved societal level well-being, and that is a primary objective of social work. Now, have you ever done a random act of kindness? Have you shoveled someone's snow, shoveled their walk? Have you helped push a car after a heavy snowfall? Have you ever organized a clothing drive for one of the local shelters? Those are all informal ways of social welfare. Social welfare can take on a more formal approach through organizations such as daycares and shelters. And so the first few examples, like doing those random acts of kindness, that's considered reciprocal social welfare. And then there's the redistributive, which is more focused on redistributing efforts to social welfare, as in the role of government intervention in providing social welfare. This is about just redistributing resources, and so what would that be? That'd be like healthcare, home care, income security programs. That's social welfare, social housing, and it takes a more formal route because the government is directly involved. And this, what these more formal roles that the government creates, they are what they do is create a welfare state, which refers to the government's committing themselves to the development of social policies for the collective well-being of all. And again, this is done through redistributing wealth. Now, the commodification of land, capital, and labor, as well as the current hegemonic positions of capitalism and neoliberalism, has given rise to a new emerging lens of welfare regime, comprising of a partnership between government, the for-profit sector, and the non-profit and voluntary sector. It's a move from a social welfare state where the government provides a lot of services to one where there are cutbacks, and the community is expected to fill in those gaps. And that's done through partnerships with between public, as in the government, to private, as in private market ventures to fill in gaps. It creates a welfare regime, um, which raises a lot of questions about the quality of care if it's for profit. So what do you think about the move away from a welfare state to a welfare regimes in terms of providing social services? Are there any ethical issues? What are the benefits and disadvantages of having market-based for-profit agencies providing services? So example, home care, there's a lot of home care aids, health aids, healthcare, even corrections. Where is that line between profit and genuine efforts towards societal well-being? I think of private substance use treatment centers. It's a little mercenary. Somebody really needs help, but who's going to pay? Is it about profit, or is it about helping an individual? Where is that line? Where is that balance? And what about the role of family in providing social welfare? How are they supported? What are they expected to do? Are there enough services for them to utilize? Okay, so that's social welfare. Now, what about social policy? What are social policies? Social policies, they are less abstract than social welfare. Social policies are they're the dominant mechanism through which societal well-being can be improved. For example, legislation exists that provides income security to individuals and families. So there is an act. These are frameworks. Frameworks define how services are provided to specific service user groups. So there's programs, and regulations are in place to constrain the way people are supported. So there are policies. So the text will say means-based, means-tested. So or they're targeted. So only if you're under a certain income, or if you're over a certain age, do you qualify for it? Those are policies. Social policy must encompass a wide range of government, nonprofit, and private sector decisions that seek to improve some aspect of societal well-being. The text provides several definitions of social policy. Richard Titmuss developed a model of social policy in 1947, and or developed models actually, and there's three of them that the text talks about. So the first one is the residual welfare state of social policy. This model argues that the private market and the family are responsible for meeting an individual's needs. Only when these options break down should social welfare institutions intervene. Proponents of neoconservative and liberal ideologies favor this model. Residual welfare, you'll hear a lot about that, the residual approach. The industrial achievement performance model of social policy, which this model argues that social models should be met on the basis of merit, work performance, and productivity. Known as the handmaiden model, it is favored by positivists and other economic and psychological theorists who advocate incentive, effort, and reward. Positivism being like something objective, you can measure it. The institutional redistributive model of social policy, and this model argues that social welfare should be a major integrated institution in society, providing universal services outside the market based on the principle of need. Based on those three, I wonder which one do you think most aligns with social work and social work values? Now, there's Martin Raine, who has the value-driven policy. Martin Raine was an American scholar, and in 1974, he suggested that social policy is, above all, concerned with choice among competing values. From Raine's perspective, society consists of people holding diverse values, in other words, different worldviews, and these people compete with one another and one another's values in an effort to achieve maximum power. Now, this is important because it's so ingrained our values in every aspect of social, economic, and public policies that many social policy theorists warn that a major role of policymakers is to learn how to control their own values and prejudices. How do you suspend that? Um, since social policy is often articulated as public policy documents reflect values that gain dominance. Public policies are legislated acts, regulations, and bylaws at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels of government. And as such, public policies are social statements reflecting the values and ideology of the political party or parties sponsoring them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, in terms, while you read the text, now in terms of the chat discussion, I wanna provide a little story, and provide a discussion after. So, I myself, I'm an immigrant to Canada. I was born in the Philippines and came to Canada when I was very young. I come from a large family where I am the youngest of 6 children, and my parents knew very little English. To this day, my parents have thick Filipino accents, and we have been in Canada for over 3 decades. Now, my parents' education was not recognized in Canada, which is still an issue today. And it turns out the company my mom got a job with while she was still in the Philippines during the immigration process, the company didn't actually exist. So my parents had a decision to make: go back to school or put food on the table. And it was a decision they made with their hearts, and they put food on the table. My mom got a job preparing food for one of the airliners, and never made more than $12 an hour in her life. My dad, who was a certified electrician in the Philippines, worked manual labor jobs and had a peak salary of $35,000 when he retired. To put that in context, when when I got out of school, my first paying job was almost double $35,000. So there's some context there. And we got sponsored into Canada. That's how we immigrated in by an aunt. Now she was legally obligated to support the family financially for 2 years, which didn't quite happen. She did find us a room to stay in on Langside. So there were 8 of us, and we stayed there for several years. This was a while ago, back in the 70s, and the Langside has a reputation now, and it had that same reputation then. And my parents, they barely spoke English. They didn't know anyone aside from my aunt, and my uncle, her partner, and my cousin, who is my age. My parents didn't know their rights. They didn't know what services were available, and they didn't know the job market. They didn't know the climate. They didn't know the politics. They didn't know about racism. And through a social work lens, what can be done to prevent this family from living a life of poverty? What services can be drawn on? What micro level work can be done to help the family adjust and thrive to Canadian living? Now, in your text, refer to page 14 and figure 1.1 in the text, which provides an example of a homeless person in Toronto. And in this example, I use in this video presentation, you can reference figure 1.1, but use the same graph for the immigrant family. There's a graph there. So perhaps that will help you to talk about this little scenario that I presented. And the chat, it's the first time we've done the chat. I hope that it works out. There might be some kinks technology wise, but I'll work that out to iron that out. Anyways, it was great talking to you. I will see you next week.